All right, welcome. I am here because I want to talk to you a little bit about two remedies, homeopathic remedies that are really great to have on hand for various reasons. And I'm going to explain the differences. So, classical homeopathy is this like treats like situation. So, what does that mean? When you're dealing with ailments, whether they're acute ailments, whether they are chronic ailments, the idea is to understand the totality of the experience and then select one remedy that is indicated for the situation, one remedy that touches the whole person. Acutely, it can be very sometimes it can be very common sense, very easy to spot. And I'm going to explain that with Aconite and Arnica today. Chronically, it can be a lot more difficult because you've had years and years and years to be going through different things. And there's lots of, let's say, those onion layers to speak of. But what's really important is when you're selecting a homeopathic remedy, some of you may have seen there's like these little blue bottles, usually in the wellness section of like Whole Foods or a co-op. In my case, mine come in bottles. They are brown. Sometimes they can be in other colors as well. But the thing about understanding how to select a remedy is really important because it's going to make or break whether the remedy actually supports what you're trying to help heal. And so let's talk about this. If you went to the co-op or the wellness section of a certain store, they have a variety of descriptions on each remedy, but that's only a very small snippet of what might be important to know about that remedy and why you would select it. For example, if you are dealing with something like diarrhea, you might select one that says this is what it's for. But that may only encompass a certain kind. You might have a certain experience that you're going through. Maybe you're going every time you drink water, or every time you eat solid food, or any, and it may look like this. But if you select a certain remedy and it doesn't have those same qualities or same symptoms, it's basically going to be like a missed target. Okay. So let's talk about Arnica and Aconite because these two you want to have on hand for first aid for these acute challenges. So Aconite and Arnica are both plant remedies. So they come from a plant. I'm not going to go into depth about how remedies are made right now, but it's not the same as going for a tincture or going to an herbalist. The process is very different. But the energy or the state of mind is what's important. So let's first talk about Arnica. Arnica is a beautiful remedy that you can use for lots of different reasons. You can use it because you fell down and had an accident. You fell off a ladder. You ran into something and you stubbed your toe and it's really bad. It's getting bruised, it's swelling. Or in the case of one of my kids, all the time, slamming their head into something or falling, and oh my gosh, that's going to become a goose egg, or that's going to look really black and blue, or they are getting swollen right away. So you would be choosing Arnica for that. You'd be choosing Arnica for another reason. When you ask the person, how are you? They're fine. Have you ever heard somebody who like they do something, they're just walking around the house, they run into something and you're like, oh my gosh, you okay? I'm fine. It's because they are so tender that they are like lashing out. And that's the energy of Arnica. So if they're like, no, oh my God, I'm going to die, the energy of that is Aconite. Okay. So Arnica is going to be like, I'm fine. I don't want you coming near me. Leave me alone. Don't touch it. They're so bruised. They're so tender. They are nervous that if you get close to them, it's going to get worse. That's the feeling. So when would you use Arnica? Just like I said, black and blue, battered, having that I'm fine, feeling a little irritable and anxious, a bit angry. You're going to use Arnica if you see that you got a concussion or somebody got a concussion. They're great traveling, when you have kids who are in different sporting events, great just for the kids who are playing at the playground, great for people who are super physically active, because sometimes they can harm themselves at the gym or going on like a strenuous hike or something, right? So there's just a lot of reasons to have arnica. So let me just, I'm going to try to keep this brief. So arnica, bruising, blunt trauma, sprains, strains. It's also great for motion sickness or jet lag. So it's great to bring when you're going on long trips. It can also be used for shock. Um, feeling of bruised soreness all over your body, both mentally and physically, and they don't want to be touched. They really just want you to leave them alone. Like even with your small children, they might be like, they want you to hold them, but they also at the same time are just really pissed because it's like not a great place to be. Now, arnica can be used in lots of different situations where those things are the case. So it can be great for after pregnancy or after labor and delivery, right? To heal up bruising. So it's a great remedy to have on hand. Right here, I have two, but I have all the different potencies I could get my hands on, really. So you've got things like a 30C, a 200C, a 1M, 10M, 50M. If you have have a very serious injury, like a broken foot or something along those lines, then you're going to want to have like possibly a higher potency, or you're going to want to take it more frequently. When you get arnica in your system as soon as possible, you negate a lot of what would come. So for example, my daughter this past week, we were playing at a playground. Some of those playgrounds have, they want kids to be able to learn different skills. There's something very uneven. She fell, hit her face, and pretty immediately I got her some arnica. And even though it had already started to swell on her forehead into what would become a goose egg, it stopped and started already reducing. It was still feeling touchy. I mean, I gave her arnica several different times over the course of 2 days until she said, I don't want any more. I'm fine. Great, but you may need to be taking it frequently or not. This is why you reach out to a homeopath to select the right remedy. Now, I'm going to give you a little story. I had a client who came in who had been in a car accident. Great use of having arnica on hand, just taking it. So, whiplash doesn't get to you, it can just minimize again or negate things completely. So they came to me and they were just having a regular checkup, talking to me about this car accident. And the problem wasn't that, yes, they took arnica and they thought like, that's what I did. I mean, everything should be fine, but they weren't speaking arnica about the car accident, right? They weren't speaking, I'm fine, it's fine, irritability, whatever. They were talking, oh my God, it was so out of nowhere. It was scary. It was, I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, that's a very different kind of experience. So instead of just arnica, I had said, you actually need aconite. So I gave her aconite and she said, I'm already feeling better by the time we had finished our session because it had been in person. This is a few years ago. And we talked about why you would choose arnica versus why you would choose aconite. And sometimes you choose, like when you're in an acute state, you take several different remedies as the symptom picture changes, as the state of where you're at starts to evolve, you can see. So for example, initially when you have some sort of surgery or even dental work, there could be bruising, swelling, soreness, right? And then you might feel like a lot of that is subsiding, but I have this like nerve pain. Okay, well then now we're going to treat the nerve pain. So that's progressing. Okay, that's not aconite necessarily, but I'm just trying to tell you that there is sometimes a process. So aconite, why do you want to have aconite on hand maybe in your purse? Great for accidents, great for shock. I'll give you an example. When did I take aconite? Well, I've taken it a few times. I've given it to my kids many times. However, aconite, for example, can be used. I had a very swift, quick labor and delivery. And I was essentially kept telling this story like it just happened so fast. I mean, I almost had her in the car. I almost had her in the parking lot. Like I almost had her in the parking lot. Yeah, it just happened so fast. And over the course of kind of dealing with some other remedies first, I ended up taking aconite for the shock. Now, I didn't feel like I was in shock. I was more in like a state of awe, like, oh my gosh, whoa, wow. But that's a totally different kind of energy than being upset and angry or irritable, right? So with aconite, you're going to want that for people who are talking the language of like shock, awe, or like, oh my God, I was going to die. Oh my God, I was going to die. So, like, instead of talking about feeling bruised and battered after a car accident, it's like, I don't even know if I can get in a car right now. Like, I'm scared to be in a car. I'm in shock. I'm in shock. Like, even again, if they're not using the word shock, you're looking at that language, you're noticing how you're feeling, you're looking at that as a form of symptom behavior, right? So if we're talking about anxiety, fear, trauma, these are all great reasons to take aconite. Um, Shock and fear, or feeling like death was impending or immediate after an accident or an injury or some sort of exposure to something. So aconite's great to have on hand for that, right? It's also great to have on hand, like again, in labor, right? Like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know, it's happening too fast. Like, it could help with the labor. So if you can give yourself some ideas of when that might be useful, aconite can be great to have on hand for that feeling of fear, trauma, shock initially. Okay. So aconite is great for like things that happen suddenly, unexpected. Aconite, you want to think of aconite. These two may go together. They may be different, right? So if you are interested in using remedies, I would say these are two really great remedies just to have on hand for life acutely. When life, throws you some sort of curveball, it's great. I use aconite a lot for children. It's great for a myriad of reasons. It's not just for dealing with some sort of accident, but it's also really great in the springtime when your kids go from like suddenly cold to suddenly hot, or in the fall, they go from hot to cold. This sudden change can have an impact. And if they wake up at midnight and they are coughing, whether it's just like a regular cough or they're having something happening in the middle of the night, fever, that's when aconite can be really great. It's like just came on suddenly, the weather had changed, we're going to go there. That's a little bit more in depth in understanding the remedy. But if you're looking for like help dealing with something that has been very shocking and you can't like get out of it and or you keep replaying it in your mind and it's something that just recently happened, aconite. If you're dealing with the bruised, battered feeling, Arnica. If you have any questions, because I think that this will keep staying in here for a little while, you can post them below in the comments. But highly recommend getting yourself at least a couple of those potencies to have on hand, and then seeking assistance from a classically trained homeopath, because you want to make sure that you're using the remedies that actually align to the physical symptoms, the mental state, the emotional state. It's an entire thing. All right. Hope you enjoyed that little bit about Arnica and aconite.